Hey, everybody, and welcome back to For the Booze.
For the Booze, with all the history and mystery behind it all.
For the Booze.
For the Booze. But if you would line up all the shows together, it would sound exactly the same.
Pretty much, yeah.
So, what's new?
I don't know, same stuff going on, lots of working.
Same old, same old.
Same old, same old.
I'm sick again, so
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Super great.
Fantastic. So exciting. Well, really enjoyed doing last week's episode on Moundsville. Had a lot of fun. It was a crazy one, honestly. I could go without talking about Man on Man for a little while.
I enjoyed doing another prison, though. We haven't done one in a while. It was fun.
I mean, it was fun. There's always so much information that are behind this, but, you know, we took a break a little while. And we have another one coming up, but before we get to it, Booze Crew, we have a listener story. We have a listener story.
So exciting.
Now, before we talk about today's show, we're going to get into this listener story. And this story was actually sent in by the individual who had sent in the voice clip that we couldn't get to play before, so he wrote it out for me.
Oh, perfect.
So,
yay.
This comes out to us. This is from Mr. Benjamin Ford. He's a fantastic follower that interacts with us on Twitter all the time. He's a real cool guy. He's actually in Florida also.
Sweet.
It says, Dear Steve and Megan, first I want to say I enjoy the show, and I apologize for the voice clip not working, but I have a story for you, and it goes as follows. As a child, growing up in the country was fun. I'd spend time playing in the woods and around the house until dark. Fun times. My grandmother used to live in this huge white house, which I think was either a plantation home or either someone died there, but I always got a funny feeling there. There was one night in particular when my sister, my aunt, and myself were inside this doomsday trap playing hide and seek. I was a little cheater, so I always knew which direction they went in, and I knew where my grandmother was in the living room on the couch watching Matlock. As I'm counting and watching my sister and my aunt run into their hiding places, the door slammed, closed, and then opened again. But not fully opening, just kind of creaking. This door was behind me. My aunt and my sister were hiding in front of the house. I lost count. Started walking towards the room and started to get cold and heavy energy. When I got to the door to turn the lights on and to check inside, the room to the door slams again in my face, this time causing me to piss myself and immediately telling my aunt and sister I needed their help. Help me! So I was too scared to move. It was almost like something was holding me there. When my aunt got to me, she screamed at me saying,
"You know this room is off limits."
And then, out of nowhere, the door opened again. There was a blast of cold air rushing in the room and just right past us. Mind you, at this time I was a kid living in Mississippi, and that day it was too hot to go outside, and in this house, central air wasn't a thing. Only window units and ceiling fans. This house scares me, but we'll save the next story for the next time.
Whoa.
Good story.
My God.
Now, Ben he's an author. He's an author, so I mean, I expected it to be a good story on that. But that's a creepy one.
I would no.
Never return to that house again.
Absolutely not. I have a question.
Okay.
Like, did anyone else, like, since they were right there after the initial things happened, did they think it was super weird that the door just popped back open by itself and you felt a cool breeze? Like, I'd love to know the answer to that.
Well, Ben, I know you're a listener, so maybe you could tweet it out at us and let Megan know. Or he's actually sent us something on Instagram as well. So either way, Ben, let us know.
Yeah, I would love to know the answer to that.
Absolutely.
That was a
pretty creepy.
awesome story.
It was really creepy.
Thank you.
But as we always say every week, the show must go on, but I'm so happy we did have a listener story.
Yes. Oh, God, it was so good to have one.
And this week, we're going to go back to an area that we have talked about before, but we're going to talk about a little different part of this state. We are going to head over to Salem, Massachusetts, and we are going to talk about
the Turner-Ingersoll Mansion,
also known as the House of Seven Gables, as per Nathaniel Hawthorne. Have you ever heard of this house?
I have not heard about this house.
This is going to be an interesting story for anybody who doesn't know about it. This house probably has more history than any other house in the United States.
Wow.
Big claims, but
yeah,
you'll understand when I get to it.
That's a lot.
So, without further ado, I think we should go ahead and start this one.
Learn me something, baby.
I'd like to send a shout out to salemghosts.com, the great and powerful wikipedia.com, ghostcitytours.com, salem.org, and goodreads.com. Today's tale starts in one of the oldest parts of the country, where ghosts seem to be an everyday occurrence. Amongst the most notable haunted towns in all of America, Salem, Massachusetts. Native Americans lived in northeastern Massachusetts for thousands of years prior to European colonization of the Americas. The peninsula that would become Salem was known as Nam Kieg by the native people who lived there at the time of contact in the early 1600s. Nam Kieg was a major settlement for the indigenous group that controlled territory from the Merrimack to the Mystic Rivers. The English and other Europeans referred to them as the Neomkeg people. There are probable indigenous settlement sites near the mouths of the North, South, and Forest Rivers of Salem. The contact was a disastrous time for the Neomkeg. Many of their people died in a war with the Tarentine, and as a result of a smallpox epidemic in 1617 that lasted until 1619, including their powerful Sashim Nanapashmet. The disease had probably been contracted by members who came into contact with European fishermen and explorers. Their strength was reduced just prior to the arrival of English settlers in 1666 to what became modern-day Salem. In 1633, a second smallpox epidemic struck, killing two of the Nanda Peshmit's successors, Manatawampat and Wanahakwaham, and leaving his remaining heir, Wenapoikin, scared. So, it was that English settlers met little resistance on their arrival in Salem, although Wenapoikin would join Metacomet in King Philip's War in 1675. English settlers at this point had the numerical superiority to defeat Metacomet's indigenous coalition. It was not until 1686 when the Massachusetts Bay Colony Charter was recalled by the King and the creation of the Dominion of New England that Wenapoikin's heirs pressed their claim to the land of Salem, in which they were paid 20 pounds. One of the most widely known aspects of Salem is its history of witchcraft allegations, which started with Abigail Williams, Betty Paris, and their friends playing with, quote, a Venus glass and an egg to learn what trade their sweethearts should be of. The infamous Salem witch trials began in 1692, and 19 people were executed by hanging because of the false accusations. Giles Corey was pressed to death for refusing to plead innocent or guilty, thus avoiding the noose and instead dying an innocent man. Salem is also significant in legal history as the site of Dorothy Talby trial, where a mentally ill woman was hanged for murdering her daughter because Massachusetts made no distinction at the time between insanity and criminal behavior. William Hawthorne was a prosperous entrepreneur in early Salem and became one of its leading citizens. He led troops to victory in King Philip's War, served as a magistrate on the highest court, and was chosen as the first Speaker of the House of Deputies. He was a zealous advocate of the personal right of free men against royal emissaries and agents. His son, John Hathorne, came to prominence in the late 17th century when witchcraft was a serious felony. Judge Hathorne is the best known of the witch trial judges, and he became known as the, quote, hanging judge, for sentencing accused witches to death. On February 26, 1775, Patriots raised the drawbridge at the North River on North Street, preventing British Colonel Alexander Leslie and his 300 troops of 64th Regiment of foot from seizing stores and ammunition hidden in northern Salem. Both parties came to an agreement, and no blood was shed that day, but war broke out at Lexington and Concord soon after. A group of prominent merchants with ties to Salem published a statement retracting what some interpreted as a loyalist leanings and professing their dedication to the American cause, including Francis Cabot, William Pynchon, Thomas Barnard, E.A. Holyoke, and William Pickman. During the American Revolutionary War, the town became a center for privateering. The documentation is incomplete, but about 1,700 letters of marque were granted during that time, issued on a per-voyage basis. Nearly 800 vessels were commissioned as privateers and are credited with capturing and destroying about 600 British ships. Now, this was just the beginning of the stories of bloodshed that surround Salem, Massachusetts, a city that is known throughout the world and country for its very dark past. They say that there is no house in Salem more haunted than the Turner-Ingersoll, better known to many as the House of Seven Gables. With its Gothic-inspired cross gables and dark-as-coffee wood clapboards, Turner-Ingersoll's infamous House of the Seven Gables looks like something out of a Hansel and Gretel spinoff. While Hansel and Gretel faced their own fate, the Turner-Ingersoll had been given a variety of fates over the years, a variety of identities too, depending on the century and the owner. Once the home of a hat and shoe merchant, this historic property on Salem's Derby Street now belongs to the House of Seven Gables Settlement Association, along with several other centuries-old homes. Today, it functions as a museum and event location, welcoming all through its doors to learn about the Salem-born author Nathaniel Hawthorne and life during the 1840s. As for the ghost of the Turner-Ingersoll, it depends on who you ask, whether or not they exist. Before there was Hepzibah Pynchon from Nathaniel Hawthorne's 1851 novel, The House of Seven Gables, there was John Turner, a son of an indentured servant from England. Despite his father's arrival to the American colonies under a system that ensured at least 7 to 12 years of servitude to his employer, John Turner quickly stamped his mark on Salem, Massachusetts. He was an invested hat and shoe merchant, and by 1668, he had amassed a large enough fortune to construct a new house. That house was much later nicknamed the House of the Seven Gables. The original structure was simple in nature, with only 2 rooms and 2.5 stories tall. But Turner was not content with just being a hat merchant. There was much more money to be made. He worked in Salem's maritime field, becoming a captain and accumulating more money than his neighbors would ever know what to do with. The Turner family was widely successful in the maritime trade, leading to a wealth that made some of the more opulent features you can see at the House of the Seven Gables today possible. The first 2 additions to the mansion were due to John Turner's maritime success. By the time of Turner's death in 1772, he was one of the wealthiest men in the entirety of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. His probate inventory and itemized list of his ownings at the time of his death spanned 14 pages, when the average inventory for the period was perhaps just 1 or 2 sheets long. In fact, John Turner's son, John Turner II, inherited 6 homes in the Bay Area, 200 acres of land, and a handful of ships docked at Salem's port. Continuing with the family's maritime tradition, John Turner II attained enough wealth to further alter the decor of the mansion. During his lifetime, the home took on a Georgian look, with wood paneling enhancing the walls of the parlor, a great chamber, and dining room. A modern paint scheme was added throughout the home, and the original 17th century ceiling beams were cased in wood. A former researcher for Colonial Williamsburg Foundation, Carrie Carson, once wrote, quote, "Today, it is the lone survivor in New England of the kind of high gentry house that introduced to North America new cosmopolitan ideas about domestic living in the last quarter of the 17th century. Merchant John Turner built himself a bigger, better dwelling than most of his neighbors owned," unquote. And John Turner did exactly that. Unfortunately, the third generation of Turners in Salem lost the fell swoop of the fortune, and the prized family home was sold in 1782 to a Samuel Ingersoll. When Sea Captain Samuel Ingersoll took on the Turner house, it had grown exponentially from its original two-room dwelling. John Turner I had later added a kitchen lean-to, a south wing to the house, and a two-story porch. He also added the, quote, secret staircase known to many, thanks to Nathaniel Hawthorne's House of the Seven Gables book. But Samuel Ingersoll intended to renovate the place even more. He removed the famed gables and exchanged them for intricate Victorian detail work. The Turner house became the Turner-Ingersoll Mansion, and it was during the Ingersoll era that Samuel's daughter, Susanna, some records call her Susan, frequently invited her cousin, Nathaniel Hawthorne. Upon Ingersoll's death in 1804, the mansion was inherited by his daughter, Susanna. Susanna Ingersoll was Nathaniel Hawthorne's second cousin, and his visit to the house and talks with Susanna inspired the novel, The House of the Seven Gables. Author Rosemary Ellen Gilly of Haunted Salem once wrote that Turner-Ingersoll's House of the Seven Gables is, quote, a ghostly reminder of shipping fortunes made and then lost, a bust blamed on the curse of the witch trials of 1692, unquote. But the house is a reminder for more than just lost shipping fortunes. It's also a blatant reminder of Nathaniel Hawthorne's guilt. It was Hawthorne's great-grandfather, John Hathorne, who served as a judge during the Salem witch trials of 1692. As records show, Hathorne may have feigned sympathy for the accused witches, but he never regretted his involvement in their trials and executions. And he certainly never expressed any remorse during the trials themselves for sending the accused to their deaths. It is said that Hathorne truly believed in the evil of witchcraft and thought it to be a real threat to the population of Salem. Following the witch hysteria of the late 1600s, the Hathorne family lost most of their wealth. Even their high status within society had plummeted. No doubt it was influenced by the families of the accused witches who sought justice for their dead loved ones. By the time Nathaniel was born in 1804, the so-called curse of the Hathorne family had not yet been lifted. During the days that he spent with his cousin Susanna in the 1840s, she revealed more and more of their family's turbulent past. She regaled him with stories of his family's involvement with slavery and other evils. At first, Nathaniel confessed to an interest in the Salem witch trials, but with age and maturity came a sort of revulsion for his ancestor judge John Hathorne, to the point that he allowed Susanna to convince him to alter his last name. Until some generations before John Hathorne, the name had actually been spelled Hawthorne with a W. Speaking to Nathaniel's concern over his budding author career, Susanna persuaded Nathaniel to add the W back in. That way, she said, no one would ever know of Nathaniel's dark, shameful lineage. Unfortunately, despite the surname switch, Nathaniel's complete disgust over John Hathorne's sins made a frequent experience in a lot of his literary works. Now, the history of the House of the Seven Gables goes beyond its beginnings as a mansion owned by a Salem merchant and sea captain. Susanna Ingersoll managed her own business out of the home. However, in 1879, her son Horace lost the mansion to creditors. From there, the mansion was purchased by the Upton family, who were the first to give tours on the property. Much like the Turner family, the Ingersolls lost their mansion after 3 generations. According to one New York Times article, quote, by 1870, a Salem guidebook had already identified the building as the House of Seven Gables, unquote. In 1908, a philanthropist, Carol Emerton, purchased the infamous Turner-Ingersoll Mansion with the intention of converting it into a museum when the Uptons moved out to a neighborhood a short distance away near the Salem Willows. She hired the noted restoration architect, Joseph Everett Chandler, to handle all renovation projects. Interestingly, Chandler had just come off a project of restoring the Paul Revere House in Boston. Under Caroline Emerton's instruction, Chandler brought back to life the 8, not 7, gables of the home, as well as to recreate Hephzibah Pynchon's scent shop featured in the book. Today, Turner and Ingersoll's House of the Seven Gables is much more than a single museum. Emerton purchased and moved other properties related to Nathaniel Hawthorne to the Turner Street location. They say, when you visit the home, you're truly stepping back in time, and, if you're lucky, you might even have a chance to take a peek at the secret staircase. As of today, there's never any one agreed upon spirit that roams this house. At any given time, anybody could tell you something different. There's a lot of death and misery surrounding this property, added by a lot of guilt. And while I struggle with the words to finish this off, I thought I would let Nathaniel Hawthorne take this one out. Quote, shall we never get rid of this past? It lies upon the present like a giant's dead body. Unquote.
Wow. that was a lot of stuff.
So this house is, I can't really speak on any really bad things happening in the house other than the things that surrounded it. Mm-hmm. Like, it was noted in some of the articles that I read that this house was basically in the epicenter of the witch trials.
Right.
So we're going to find out in your story there's reasons why you can't really find anything on this house. Mm-hmm. There's a reason behind it, but I don't want to get ahead of myself and give it away for everybody.
Yeah, but it's not like it was, it had gallows on it and, other houses that we've done that,
exactly.
People were hanged there and this, that, and like the witch trials weren't held on the lawn
they weren't.
Anything like that.
But this house was directly in the middle of the witch house, because this is like an original New England home. I'm talking about the Hawthornes came over on the Mayflower, mm-hmm. but it was in the middle of all of it. Mm-hmm. And while we can't be for certain, but not that I can find anyways, about anything too bad happening in the house outside, I'm sure family members probably passed away there.
Right.
But extracurricular death, like people being hung and shot and thrown downstairs and
mm-hmm.
the stuff we usually find.
Right.
But that's what kind of drew me to do this one,
mm-hmm.
was that it is different. There's not, it's not flooded with a bunch of claims, because I can't find anything.
Right.
Except for what you got.
Okay.
You got a few stories.
I do.
And I think now that we've kind of listened to the history of, honestly, it might be one of the oldest houses in the country. I'm not sure. But I think we should go ahead and take it over and maybe hear about some of the spooky stuff they got going on.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Here we go. And now, time for an ad break.
And now, back to our show. Thanks to this week's episode goes out to GhostCityTours.com, TheHauntedPlaces.com, Grunge.com, HauntedHouses.com, and SalemNews.com. Is the Turner-Ingersoll house haunted? Well, it sort of depends on who you ask. Each year, the museum hosts a series of theatrical plays, all of which surround the Salem witch trials. Plays such as Legacy of the Hanging Judge and Spirits of the Gables, which is a recreation of Nathaniel Hawthorne's book. As for the ghosts outside of the theatrical performances, well, everyone has their opinion on that. Tour guides and employees tend to argue that the Turner-Ingersoll is not haunted at all. When asked if there are any spirits lurking around the house, all are very quick to reply.
Nope, no ghosts here.
But the local lore has a different story to tell, and so do many of the visitors who enter Salem's House of the Seven Gables. Many old homes have reputations for being haunted. So why might the Turner-Ingersoll Mansion be considered more haunted than most? It might have something to do with what has been discovered during renovations over the years. People who love their homes while alive often want to stay in them, not letting death get in the way. When their homes are restored, some say it's like a giant paranormal trigger that draws spirits back into this world. Children who have died from disease or accidents sometimes like to stay in the family home or a familiar, safe place. Some spirits choose to stay in this world, appearing as children because it was a very happy time in their life, or because they are trying to work through a rough childhood trauma. Several rooms that had been hidden for years were uncovered as work began on the house. A walled-off dining room, among others, was finally allowed to see the light of day again. A hidden staircase was also located, after being walled up for generations. However, this doesn't prove the existence of ghostly phenomena, but the discovery of these hidden rooms definitely adds to the mysterious feeling of this old house. For years, visitors have reported a number and a variety of paranormal activities during their tour of the famed mansion. In the secret staircase, visitors have reported seeing a man stumbling up the stairs, only to find the attic room empty when they reach the top. Some have also experienced an unexplainable, overwhelming sensation in the room. The spirit of a young boy is said to linger in the attic. Many have reported hearing a high-pitched giggle and the sounds of little footsteps running and jumping around on the attic floor. It is unclear who the spirit may be, but a Salem historian has surmised that he himself may be the son of a servant who died in the attic. That same attic that once was the living quarters of the servants who worked in the mansion. For others, they admittedly believe that the little boy is Julian, the son of Nathaniel Hawthorne. Some find this hard to believe since, by the time Hawthorne did have children, he no doubt wouldn't have been visiting the Turner-Ingersoll Mansion as frequently as he'd done in his youth. Also, in the secret staircase, visitors have witnessed the spirit of a man clambering up and down the stairs. Those who have seen him are quick to link the spectral existence to the Underground Railroad. But the Turner House, even during the 18th and 19th centuries, was never a stop on the Underground Railroad, and those secret steps were not even built until nearly 50 years after the closing of the Civil War. Another spirit commonly spotted in the mansion is the ghost of Susanna Ingersoll. She was frequently spotted roaming the hallways and peeking out of windows, seemingly to catch a glimpse of visitors to her former home. When the television show Ghost Hunters visited the mansion, Adam Berry told informed author Sam Baltrusis that the strength in paranormal investigating is to rely on your intuition. Baltrusis then repeated Berry's statement in his book, Ghosts of Salem. Quote, "As investigators, we try not to go on feelings because you can't prove feelings, but you can't ignore your biggest organ, which is your skin, and the goosebumps you get and the feeling like you're being watched." End quote. Well, The following reported paranormal encounters at Nathaniel Hawthorne's former haunt goes to show that Turner-Ingersoll's House of the Seven Gables has a lot more otherworldly activity than many might want to believe. Story 1. In October 2006, a visitor named Christopher toured the mansion with his girlfriend. Unfortunately, they arrived too late, 7:30 p.m., and the museum was already closed for the day. They stayed a while anyway, snapping photos and genuinely enjoying the atmosphere of the property. The following day, they returned to Salem in the early evening to make sure they didn't miss the chance of a tour for the second day in a row. They checked in, and according to the story, never even knew the place was supposed to be haunted. When Christopher descended to the bottom of the infamous attic stairs, he heard the distinct sound of a woman's voice next to his ear. The voice murmured. Christopher whipped around, expecting to see his girlfriend standing there, but she wasn't. Apparently, she was still a good 4 feet away, standing in the middle of the stairwell, and she hadn't said a single word. Story 2. Over the years, the most common paranormal phenomena that people experience is a feeling of complete unease in the attic. Just a few years ago, one visitor explained that her visit to the House of Seven Gables began pretty normally. It was only when she ascended the stairs to the attic that an eerie sense of unease slithered through her. She recalled her experience saying, quote, "I suddenly felt queasy and lightheaded and couldn't breathe. I had the feeling that I had to get out of the room now. I couldn't concentrate and I felt incredibly anxious." End quote. While the feeling subsided upon leaving the attic space, others reported the same threatening sensation. One anonymous visitor even went so far as to write, quote, "I am sensitive to that sort of stuff, and I felt a very strong presence inside the attic area. I remember doing a double take for no explained reason in the attic towards the little yellow window facing the front, but nothing was there." End quote. Later, the same visitor reported capturing the face of a woman in one of the upstairs windows while she walked to the gardens. Story 3. One former employee recalls a terrifying experience from her days working at the mansion in the early 2000s. While in the laundry room one afternoon, she felt an eerie presence. The rumors of this building being haunted were not new to her, but she had never felt uneasy until she was in the basement loading the washer. She tells of a man dressed in colonial-era clothing materializing in the corner of the room. He rushed over to her with his arms outstretched, as if to strangle her. Terrified, she immediately fled the basement and ran out into the daylight courtyard. She quit her job that very day. Story 4. While today we are focusing on the Turner-Ingersoll Mansion, we have to remember that this is just one of many haunted places in this area. In 2007, Donna LaCroix sat down for an interview about an experience she had as a child and the time she returned with ghost hunters. Donna LaCroix, a member of the ghost hunters team, had an experience at the House of Seven Gables at the age of 11 that left her always wanting to return to Salem. LaCroix was only 11 years old and visiting the Witch City with her family from Scituate, Rhode Island, during a tour of the historic home. She entered a room and felt another presence, sending her into a trance-like state. LaCroix said, quote, "I can't even describe it. It was almost as if someone was looking back at me. Ever since that day, I wanted to go back to Salem." End quote. Her wish was granted the fall of 2007, when the reality series traveled to the North Shore to film the episode, Salem Witch. Though the modern-day Ghostbusters weren't able to check out the House of Seven Gables, they did set up shop in Hawthorne Hotel and the Lyceum Bar and Grill, built on the apple orchard of Bridget Bishop. Bishop was the first person who was executed during the famed witchcraft trials. Quote, "There was something about the town I loved. It was so mysterious to me," end quote, said LaCroix, who made her recent trek to Salem with fellow members of the Atlantic Paranormal Society, including founders Jason Hawes and Grant Wilson. The Salem witch investigation started at the Hawthorne Hotel, built in 1920s, where guests have witnessed strange sounds and occurrences. The second night, investigators turned to the 19th century Lyceum building, where people persistently smell apples, despite the lack of them on the menu. Workers there also report feeling a presence of unexplained problems with electrical equipment. Quote, "There's a certain energy about the town. There's just something there in the air. A lot of things took place there," end quote, said LaCroix, adding that she felt like she stepped into the past when she and the team visited. While during the course of the interview, she couldn't go into specifics about what they had found in Salem. She did comment that it was nothing extreme, but she added that she couldn't shake the feeling of something around her at all times. LaCroix, who had been on countless investigations with the ghost hunters, found something different about this experience. She had a hard time sifting her own preconceived notions about Salem. Quote, "You're dealing with a town that is steeped in the history of witchcraft trials, but that doesn't necessarily translate to paranormal activity," end quote. Also noting that places that have experienced tragedies often do have connections to paranormal activity. Quote, "We had really put it out of our minds, the story behind the place, in order for that not to bias our judgment. For me personally, there is definitely a presence and an essence of mystery there. I can't put my finger on it, but it's there," end quote. So as expected, many people ask, is the mansion still haunted? According to hauntedhouses.com, they go on to say, probably so. Though there isn't much hard evidence to back up the personal experiences of staff and visitors, the volume of personal experiences and the aura of the place itself strongly suggests that entities share the home with staff and cordially welcome tourists. At night, when the museum is closed, they say the spirits still have this beautiful home to themselves. A psychic by the name of Lisa was taking a tour of the mansion, made contact with a presence, and took a picture on the back porch of a little boy seen playing up by the gables. Many personal experiences of staff and visitors have been reported and shared through the years. Very few paranormal groups are allowed to investigate or publish their findings because the folks in charge don't want to lose the focus on their mission statement: to be a source of education, preservation, and community philanthropy. At this point, they aren't ready to come completely out of the paranormal closet. Yet. Though they hint at it through the theatrical production, and did allow the story found in D'Agostino's book to be published, they currently have a peaceful coexistence with their spirits and don't want to disturb them. The House of Seven Gables can be found in Salem, on Derby Street, between Turner Street and Hardy Street, not far from the Derby Wharf. It has a spectacular view of the harbor, as the home sits on prime real estate. With its rich history around the first settlers, the Salem witch trials, and the shame of a famous author. It seems that while the house still stands the test of time and continues to share the history of its origins, its ghostly residents seemingly have no intentions to move out any time soon.
Dang. So, like I had said, leading up to this part, there's a reason that people don't know about the actual spirit activity in this house.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they don't let you talk about it. They don't let you publish it. They don't put it out there.
Yeah.
Which I think is very strange, because the mass majority of haunted places, that is their lean to. That is what they lean into.
Oh,
the
absolutely.
hardest. So it's crazy to me. Well, I guess I understand. I'm from up north.
Mm-hmm.
And most historical places really are focused on the history.
That aspect of it.
Because
and not
it's-
all the other stuff.
Yeah, it's the birthplace of America, right?
Right.
So I guess I could understand it, but I don't know. A part of me thinks that they should kind of lean into it, because I'd love to see some stuff on this house.
I mean, I'd love to have some EVPs play at the end of this. You know what I
That's
mean?
not gonna
But it's
happen.
not going to happen. I mean, the freaking ghost hunters went out there and couldn't even get into this place.
Yep.
Like, that says a lot.
But people have gone there. They've taken the tours. And, I mean, luckily for us, they had paranormal experiences and posted them. And But this place is actually known as not just, like, a haunted place in Salem. I saw this place on a list of the most haunted places in possibly the world. But there's, like, nothing
Wow,
on
really?
it. Yeah, but there's, like, nothing on it. That's
Yeah.
the thing that baffles me about
Yeah.
it. So I can't find any pictures. I can find pictures of the house, don't get me wrong.
Right.
I can't find any pictures, like spooky pictures.
Like the little boy that was supposedly
Yes.
captured in a picture
I can't
up by the
find-
Gables.
I can't find EVPs. I can't find any video footage. Nothing. I can't find anything.
And
So,
even with the stuff that's here, it's mainly just feelings that people get, or, you know, sensations that they have tend to be the majority of it, which makes me think more like a wandering spirit
Possibly.
house, you know, like just in and out. There's not just one residing, or a couple, or, you know, a handful of residing same ghosts.
well, again, like I said, this was part of the epicenter of the witchcraft trials.
So,
So-
like, I don't know. I don't know about this one.
I have my thoughts, but we'll get to them.
Okay.
So I guess it's time to get to that point of... Well, other Steven. What do you think, Meg? What do you think about this place? Do you think it's real?
I want to say yes. I really do. And I think I'm going to do like a 50-50
Okay.
on this one. The 50% on the yes would be the age of it, where it is, New England, it being just that such deep, rich history in wars and Native Americans and all those other things, because there isn't huge things that have gone on in this house that we know of. I mean, maybe there have, but I don't think I know enough about it. And as someone who has had those types of feelings that people seem to have in the house reoccurringly, that could happen, I think, anywhere.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think I'm going to say 50-50 on this one. I'm
50-50.
not sure. I am not sure.
Okay.
What about you?
I think it's real.
Okay.
Just straight up. I think, in my opinion, that a place that does have... There's quite a few people who claim to have had experiences there. It's just not documented in a way other than like a word of mouth. But this house exists. It's been said as one of the most haunted places ever. They don't lean into it. They're not looking for that fame. They don't want that fame. They want nothing to do with it. So that tells me that people going there having experiences, those are genuine experiences.
Right.
Because this place doesn't even want you to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's also
I
on
could see that.
Native American land, which we've said so many times, is such a big proponent of like a paranormal thing. And it's in the center of the witch trials. I understand, there's more ties. You got to go read into this book, okay, about this house and stuff. This house does have a lot of ties to the witchcraft trials. So I do believe I just wouldn't even be able to begin to tell you what I think it is because I have no idea.
Right.
But I do believe, 100% that this house is haunted purely based on a couple main factors. The Native Americans, the proximity in which it sits to the witchcraft trials, and a thing that we kind of glossed over was this lady Emerton from my story. Mm-hmm. She had a bunch of Nathaniel Hawthorne's other houses relocated to this area. They moved houses intact fully and plopped them down. And we all know the ghosts come out when you start doing stuff. And how many times was this house renovated?
Yeah.
So if there's stuff in there, they're constantly kicking stuff up in there. It's constant. It never stops.
Yeah. I get it. I feel like this, like I said earlier, it's a wandering place. Like in and out, yes, it could be haunted, but like, is it all the time? Is it super serious? Like, I just have a lot of questions, you know?
I think we all do.
Yeah.
I think we all do.
We'd probably never get the answers.
Probably not. You never know. One day somebody will come in charge there and be like, yeah, we can use it for this. But
I don't know. I think that's kind of cool that they do that. It just kind of keep it pure, I guess.
It adds to the mystique of it.
Yes, the mystique.
So, I mean, this is really as far into this place as we can go, unfortunately. If you want to learn more, there's a literary classic out there, Nathaniel Hawthorne's House of the Seven Gables. It's a highly regarded book, and it's got tons of good quotes that came out of it. And there are lots of articles on this place. I mean, there's a never-ending supply of websites to read the exact same history over and over. So if you want to take a deeper dive, hey, knock yourself out. We just tried to get to the bottom of the spooky, and I think we did that. This place was really cool. I don't know what it was about this place. I think it was that there wasn't an overabundance of stuff. I really enjoyed writing this one. And, it's like a hometown thing for me, too. I like talking about Massachusetts because I never get to go back there. So this is it. Where can they, wait. We have to give this because it got 75%.
Okay.
The seal of approval.
Okay, now we can move on.
Okay.
So go there, check it out, read it up, listen to it. All right. Where can they find us?
They can find us on Instagram at forthebooze_podcast and on Facebook at forthebooze.
You can also find us on Twitter at forthebooze. And don't forget, you can listen to us on your television if you go over to YouTube and look us up, For the Booze. And, Booze Crew, there's a lot of you listening to us. I'd really like your stories. I know we say this every week.
Yeah.
forthebooze12@gmail.com. Stories, suggestions, say hi. I don't know if you're local. Let's get a coffee. I don't know. Hit us up.
Yeah.
Hit us up.
Super cool.
Yeah,
Would
man.
love that.
Hey, if you're local, you can come on the show if you want. We're down for that.
I'm working on something with somebody local. It's another Florida place, but I'm working on it. It's somebody I've known for
yes, but this takes
a long
it to
time.
another limit.
I know.
This might be recording in a new location once.
I know. I'm working on it.
We'll see what happens. We really do got a few really cool ones coming up.
We do.
Got one that we're doing with a special guest. I actually said it last week. It's not a big deal. But Rick at Maximalize. So we're going to do a special episode with him. We might be doing a special episode on location. I mean, things are happening. So.
Yeah. Super exciting. If you like the show, go and give us 5 stars, rate and review. It always helps us out so very much.
Yeah, it takes 2 minutes, and you don't have to really write anything. The stars are all that really matters.
And we appreciate each and every one of you who listen.
Absolutely.
Very, very much. And we hope you continue to enjoy the show because we continue to love doing it.
Absolutely. And we will be back next week with a really good one. We've got so many good ones lined up. I cannot wait to do them. So we hope to have you listening then. And I guess this is it. And
we'll see you in the next one.
I guess we'll just catch you guys on the next one. History is mystery. All right, guys. Bye.